Hello mathematicians, puzzlers, and other curious people. This video is an optional resource for anyone who feels like they need some information about how stem plots are used in mathematical communication. So I've got a data set here, and it's the January 2021 high temperatures in Lufkin, so from just last month. We know it was kind of chilly most days. I got this from AccuWeather. The exact link's right there. These are ones because I didn't want them to look like L's. That's a 7, of course. Zip code for reference. Okay, so first of all, I copied them down into this, and I copied them down a certain way. Now, this isn't a one right way kind of a thing, but it's something that I noticed would be helpful for making sure that I didn't skip or double up anything in copying. So I noticed that there should be 31 data points because there would be one high temperature each day. Now, I noticed the 31 was just under 32, which is like if we have 4 rows of 8 things in each row. Now, the importance of this is we see that there's this one spot here with nothing in it, and otherwise it's a good rectangle. So that tells me that we really do have 31 data points here. So that tells me that I probably didn't make a copying error in copying this out. Now what we're going to do here is organize this data set into a stem plot or a stem and leaf plot, same thing, just two different names for it, because that'll help us get a better idea of what's going on by organizing the information. Because here, all I see is that we've got a bunch of different numbers. It looks like most of them are in the 60s at first glance, a fair amount of 50s, a few 70s, some 40s, and I see one that's in the 30s, but a lot of them are in the 60s. So that gives me some idea of what the weather was like in Lufkin, but I don't know what I'm missing because it's not organized. So I'm going to organize this. And again, the stem and leaf plot is the way I'm choosing to organize it. So I'm going to have my stems and my leaves. And those will be separated by a vertical line. Now I notice that I need to have stems starting at a 3 for numbers in the 30s and going up to a 7 for numbers in the 70s. And it's the way things work in Stemplots as a communication tool to go from your minimum to your maximum all the way up through all the numbers in between in your stems. You might not have any leaves for some of those stems depending on your data set, but you should still write the stem that would be used because that's how it goes. Now for this 46 here, what I will do is put a 6 as a leaf in the 40s. So where we have this 4 and this 6, that tells me that there's a point in our data set that is 46. And then I will check that off so that I don't accidentally put that in twice. Okay, so then we'll just keep going. So 55. So in the 50s stem, I'll put a 5 leaf. So this is just like place value, where the stem is the tens place and the leaf is the ones place. And then just keep going. So then next one is 65. So I go to the 60s stem and put a 5 leaf. 73. So I go to the 70s stem and put a 3 leaf. 68, so 60s stem, 8 leaf. 65. Even though there's already one in there, I'm going to put another 5 because this means that there's a 65 and then another 65. It's okay if you have some repeating numbers in this. You should represent all of them. Then we have 49. 48, 52, 41, 38, 53, 59, 67, 56, 57, 65, 69, 71, 65. Again, it's a repeat, but that's okay since it really is representing more than one day in the data set. Okay, and then 67, 64, 57, 70, so that's a 7 in the tens place for the stem, and a 0 in the ones place. Let's see, 76, so 76, 71, 64, 57, 64, 67, and last but not least, 64. Okay, so we're almost there. There's one more thing we need to do for this stem plot to be proper, and there's one thing we should do before we go on. So I see here that we have one leaf going with the 30s stem. Let's see, 4 leaves with the 40s stem. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 leaves with the 50s stem. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 leaves in the 60s stem, and 2, 4, 5 leaves in the 70s stem. And I'm going to just grab my calculator really quick and make sure that that adds up to 31. If it doesn't, I'm going to try to find where something may have gone sideways, but I'm hoping it will. So let's see, 1 and 4 and 8 and 13 and 5 is 31. Okay, so that's encouraging. So that gives me a good idea that that I don't seem to have obviously dropped or double written anything. It's still possible to have the right number at the end if you drop the same number as you double write, but it's a little unusual to make mistakes that exactly cancel each other out like that. So this is just, it's not an absolute proof that we did everything right, but it's a little something to give us a good reason to be confident. Okay, so now I'm going to look at how these leaves are organized. Now, what I want is for them to be in numerical order because that's just the conventional way a stem and leaf plot goes together so that it's the most organized it can be. Now, you can't really put one thing, this 8 here in the 30s in any different orders, so we just have to move on from that. But see how this 4 stem has the leaves going 6, 9, 8, 1. Well, no, that's all jumbled. So since I'm on a computer, I can just pull them off to the side. Oop, let me try that again. The problem is my 8s went kind of high there. I can just scoot these off to the side and then move them back in order. If you're doing this on paper instead, you might have to erase or rewrite something. But literally, you're just putting the numbers back in order. So I'll do the same thing again in the 50s stem. So let's see, the 2 and the 3 come first. I can go ahead and bring them at the same time since they're side by side. And then the 5. And then the 6 and the 7s, again, they happen to be conveniently clustered. I'll take it. And then the 9. Now the 6s look a little more complicated, and that's probably just because there are more of them. Let's see, it looks like the 4s are my lowest element. If I've overlooked something, I'll find it as I'm organizing things. So I'll move over the 4s. And then the 5s. And it looks like the 5s are all in there individually, so I just have to bring them all over individually. But that's not so bad. And again, if I were doing this on paper instead of in a computer writing program, I would just erase and rewrite or just make another copy off to the side. Okay, so there, now my 60s stem is in order. I'll just do the same thing with my 70s stem. Pull the leaves off to the side. Bring in the 0. I'm going to be a little clever with this and bring the 1s back at the same time. And then I can scoot the 6 next to the 3 and move them back at the same time. So I've still got the same number of leaves in each stem. I've just put them in order so that I can see what's going on. So this really helps for finding out some particular numbers that are important for this. For example, now I could see this before from it being the only leaf in that stem, but I can see here that 38, my lowest leaf in my lowest stem, is my minimum. So if I were putting that as a contextual sentence, I could say the lowest high temperature for a day in January 2021 in Lufkin was 38 degrees. Now I can also see the maximum now that I've got these in order because I can just go to the highest stem and pick the highest leaf from the highest stem. So I can say, okay, so we're in the 70s with a ones place of 6, so 76 would be our maximum. And as a contextual sentence, I'm just going to copy the one I did before, but change the words that, oh, whoop, I see that didn't go around. Why is that not catching that? Let me try that again. Okay, you have to go all the way under. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to edit what's changing because it's a maximum instead of a minimum. So that'll be the highest high temperature for a day in January 2021 in Lufkin was, and we have to change the number to 76 degrees. Oop. Why is that getting left behind? That's so interesting. There we go. For some reason that erased the 31, but I can write that back in. Okay, so there's an example of two numerical facts that can be much easier to find using a stem and leaf plot than by just looking at the data set in its raw form. Another that can be easier to find this way is the mode, which is whichever there's the most of. So what I would do is just look in the leaves of each stem and find out from that what there are the most repetitions of. So I know it's nothing in the 30s or 40s because there's only one each of those. I see there are 3 57s, that's things ending in 7 in the 50s. But then I see that there are 4 64s and 65s. So I would say that this data set is bimodal, where 64 degrees and 65 degrees are the modes. And so there you can see some information that you can find from a stem and leaf plot, and how you can read numbers from a stem and leaf plot, and how you can make a stem and leaf plot from a data set.